to thank you for inviting me here, listening to my views about Pakistan, Pakistan's policy. And I start with how someone like me, a sportsman for 20 years, international sportsman who ended up in politics. I'm the first generation Pakistani. My parents were born in colonial India. I was the first generation who grew up in an independent Pakistan. We grew up with a lot of pride. My parents reminded me always how awful it was to live in a colonial, in a country where you didn't have your freedom. So I valued the freedom of being in an independent country. And we took great pride when Pakistan started growing rapidly in the 60s. It's not used to my voice, I think it's too heavy for it. In the 60s, Pakistan was the fastest growing country in the whole region. Pakistan was a country which gave us hope. We grew up feeling that this is a country with a destiny. And then things started going wrong from 70s onwards. And I was playing cricket for 2 decades, international sportsman. I finished in the early 90s. And my initial thought after playing sport was to go into social work. I had already started building a cancer hospital. My mother had died of cancer. And I realized that there was no cancer hospital in Pakistan, so I thought I would build one, specifically because poor people cannot afford cancer treatment. So I spent 6-7 years of my life after cricket building and then running the hospital. But it was during that time I realized that this is a big country. Social work was not going to change it. The only way we would change our country is joining politics. Change only comes through when you head a government and bring about a change. And the reason why I joined politics was because I realized our politics was going in a direction which was leading Pakistan to nowhere. Problem with most ex-colonial countries was exactly what Pakistan was facing. If you look at Africa, you look at the independence movements in Africa, and then the leaders who came from the independence movement once they assumed government, a similar pattern took place. The moment they got power, they used power for benefiting themselves. Corruption was the main reason why countries could not reach their potential. And Pakistan was exactly that country which in 60s, while was taking off, from mid-80s onwards, it started going down because of corruption of the ruling elite. So when I formed my party in 1996, it was on an anti-corruption platform. And I campaigned for 15 years in the political wilderness, talking about corruption, and could not make people understand the relevance, the relation between corruption and poverty. People could not relate the two. Somehow in ex-colonial countries, people thought taking money from the government was nothing wrong with it because it was not your government. It was a foreign government which was ruling over you. So if you evaded taxes, there was, you were not doing anything wrong. And similarly, corruption. So I formed my party, as I said, in 1996. For 15 years, I had only a few people with me, and no one thought I had a chance. But then suddenly, people began to understand what I was saying. So the party then began to take off about 7 years ago. And in 2013, we formed government in one of the 4 provinces. And because of our performance in that one province, in 2018, we won the elections. So what has been the main challenge since we've come to power 10 months ago? Number one challenge was inheriting a country which was bankrupt. We had the biggest current account and fiscal deficits. But worse, what corruption does is it's not just a question of bankrupting a country and money being laundered out of the country. What happens is the ruling elites, when they make money, when they make money out of corruption, they then have to take it out of the country because otherwise people would ask them questions, where did the money come from? So you suffer in two ways. Number one, the money which should go to human development ends up going into people's pockets. But secondly, that money leaves the country. And in my opinion, which I spoke to President Trump yesterday, the biggest problem that the world faces is about $1 trillion leaving developing and poor countries and either going into offshore accounts or they end up in Western countries. And this is impoverishing, this is causing more deaths than through terrorism, than through drugs. The amount of people dying of hunger and disease, lack of education, not having clean drinking water, is because of the ruling elites and developing world taking that money out and parking it into, as I said, offshore accounts or Western countries. So we faced a similar situation. We had the biggest current account deficit and fiscal deficit. But the other aspect of corruption is that in order for the ruling elites to take money out, they have to destroy the state institutions. Because if the institutions are strong, they would not be able to take the money out. For instance, if your anti-corruption body is strong, if your justice system is working, is robust, if your taxation department, like equivalent to the Indian revenue here or the IRS here, if these institutions are strong, you cannot take money out of the country. But that's the biggest damage these corrupt ruling elites do to developing world. They destroy these institutions. So, you can recover the money, but what you can't, to build institutions takes time. So the biggest challenge we have faced since we've been in power is trying to build the state institutions. And, we have succeeded, we have turned around various institutions, but it is a slow process. The relationship which we've had with our neighbors, the other priority we've tried to instill in Pakistan amongst the people is that we must have good relationship with all our neighbors. Because Pakistan at the moment, most of all, needs stability. We need stability for economic progress. We need peace. And so for peace, we need to have a good relationship with our neighbors. So first was me trying to reach out to India. India is, a country which we've had turbulent relationship with. But unfortunately, because of one issue of Kashmir, whenever we have tried, whenever relationship has started to move in the right direction with India, some incident happens, and that's all related to Kashmir, we go back to square one. And so I reached out to my counterpart in India, the Indian Prime Minister, assured him that, you come one step towards us, we will go 2 steps towards you, because the biggest problem India and Pakistan face is poverty. And the best way we can reduce poverty is if we start trading with each other. The next was Afghanistan. We again have had a difficult relationship with Afghanistan. And so we have reached out. I have invited President Ghani to Pakistan. And, it's a sort of long story, but we are moving towards Fortunately, we're all moving towards the same direction. There's a convergence now